should incentivised contracts become the norm for players in football in a bid to crack down on any sort of complacency? Because Chelsea's new owners are overhauling the club's bonus structure in a bid to start rebalancing the wage bill and keep motivation levels high. What do you make of this story? The idea of changing the way that players get paid. Instead of big basic salaries, they're going to get slightly smaller basic salaries and huge bonuses.
Depends what position you're in when you negotiating the contract. As a player, for me, I wouldn't have cared because I rarely got injured. Played a lot of games, and my wages would have been what they were going to be, even if I didn't get the bonuses. So I think you look at the player individually. I think you can't just throw a cloth over everyone and say, yep, you're all having that same situation, because some players are going to say, well, I don't want that, I'm not going to sign. So it depends what position the player's in. If you're a powerful player and you don't miss a lot of games, you've got every right to say to the club, well, no, I play every game, and if I get injured, that's just unfortunate. It's not like me throwing the towel in and just picking up my dough.
The idea is to stop any sort of tail-off when the Premier League title is out of reach or Champions League qualifications disappeared.
I can't even imagine that being a thing for a professional player, though.
Well, listen, this is something that was in one of the papers today, actually. The old bonus scheme that Roman Abramovich put in place was big basic salaries. A bonus pot was shared in the region of £10 million for winning the Champions League in 2021. But it's had drawbacks because sometimes in the Premier League, once the title was out of reach, many were able to still collect their big wages without needing to even play, because there was no...
What they're saying is bad apples, down in tools, and not trying the best.
Well, that's a suggestion. I don't think there's anyone pointing a finger at any
know
players.
Are good lads. Buy players that you know are good lads.
And
that's what people are trying to do.
Yes, this is about recruitment and doing your research. But ultimately, I mean, there's nothing wrong with structuring contracts. I mean, some of the bonuses that are being paid out or suggested to being offered to new players at Chelsea are qualification for the Champions League knockout stages, for example, or 60% of all games being played over the course of the season. That's just you would, as a professional footballer, you'd want to be able to do that. If you play 59%,
anyway. you get a massive reduction in wages because you've missed.
Not a massive. I would think, because all these different criterias are there, each one of them picks up a little bonus on the way through, which ultimately adds up to a big.
So what about if you start pulling out a challenge because you think, right, I've had 59% of the games and I don't want to go into this challenge because
then you'll lose a little bit of money, won't you?
I think you've got to look at the character and first and foremost.
So after
as
saying
a recruitment,
that you don't mind it, you don't like it.
I don't like it, no, because I think if you're going to get good players in who you think are good eggs and you've got a good coach, that won't go wrong.
As I'm in the Simon Jordan chair, I'll just morph into him for a moment because he has said publicly...
It's going to be very difficult for you to do. I'm just going to
close your eyes.
But he said publicly on numerous occasions that the reason wages in the Premier League have become so obscene and so out of hand is because of Roman Abramovich and the way that he came in and started dishing out huge contracts, as you say, with big money up front at Chelsea. So I think for them it's a little bit after the horse has bolted. And I think if you look at some of their young players in particular...
Well, no, it's a huge change of power at Chelsea. So they're trying to do something about their own club. Todd Bowley's not trying to recorrect the market itself.
But it's difficult to do because what that means is that you'll have new players coming to the football club on this new bonus scheme, but you've got the existing players who had already signed big contracts. I would imagine maybe a bit reluctant to go down that road, so that could possibly cause a split in the dressing room. But I just wanted to highlight some of the young players that Chelsea have thrown an awful lot of money at in recent years, the likes of Callum Hudson-Odoi, Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I was told the wages that he was on when Southampton were trying to sign him on loan, and they were obscene, to be honest. And I wonder if it stunted their development somewhat, because in Callum Hudson-Odoi, do you see a player who necessarily is hungry to make sure he's in that Chelsea team week in, week out?
He would refute that allegation, but he certainly hasn't kicked on as many people hoped when Bayern Munich was swirling with an £85 million offer for him.
And it makes it impossible for other clubs who have got a different wage structure
to
then say, OK, we'll take you on loan for the year, you're going to play first team football potentially in the Premier League or in La Liga or in another elite league in Europe, but then they look at the wages and think, well, we can't get anywhere near that. So unless Chelsea are going to pay half their wages or a certain fraction of their wages for him to get the experience, then he's just going to be like one of many players who signed professional contracts, is at a big club and never plays any football.
One of the
fans miss out.
Discussions this summer, of course, is about what happens to Billy Gilmour, what happens to Levi Colwell. Harvey Vale has left the first team squad and they've all gone to Salt Lake City where they're training with the under-23s. I imagine that those players are going to go out on loan. Norwich City got a very good deal from Chelsea last year in terms of wage remuneration, but he still didn't play any games. And ultimately, these players have got to play games if they're going to kick on and go forward.
That was a disastrous placing of a player because Norwich were always going to be in a scrap for survival. It wasn't the right move for his development. He ended up getting stick from Norwich fans, as often happens actually when a player is on loan. If a team is struggling, they're an easy target, and I do think it stunted his development. When you look at this time last year, when he was man of the match for Scotland at Wembley.
You don't get them all right, do you? Because sometimes you get those loans wrong, and sometimes they do come up. Look at
Harvey
Elliott.
With Palace and West Brom. Yeah, and you look at Harvey Elliott, who went to Blackburn, had a full season there, played a lot of games, scored goals, went back to Liverpool and was straight into the squad. And actually,
will be a big part of the squad this year as well.
Beginning of the season, last season, we watched some of the games before he got his injury, and he was very good, playing 1 and 2 touch football. He seemed to have an older head on his shoulders. The way that he played the game, he played in the future a little bit, and he was sharp, and he didn't look out of his depth at all. I don't think that would have been the case if he didn't go to Blackburn and had the season there. So, and then you've got to look at Phil Foden, because a lot of people in the media were saying Phil Foden should go out on loan. He's never going to play. He played 10 games, then he played 20 games before. He's played lots of games for Manchester City, won everything, and he's one of their key players. So it's different rules for different personalities, and it's just getting that right decision on each player. I think that will, it's going to guide them to see what they're going to achieve in the game.
I think Chelsea will put their hands up and say they've made some mistakes. Talking of which, Timo Werner, what's his future hold? Because it has been a bit of a poor move for him, and he will admit that, I think. He hasn't really lived up to the expectation that I think everybody had when they saw this Bugatti speed centre-forward who had scored an inordinate number of goals in the Bundesliga turn up at the Premier League before the end of the COVID season, actually, and then failed to make an impact. I mean, it was a difficult... Bugatti speed.
I love that.
You know what type of car showroom he's shopping in these days, by the way.
He's changed, by the way. He's changed.
He used to be more of a Ford Cortina kind of guy. We've just talked about the problem, actually, though. When it comes to Timo Werner.
Are we in a scene from Stranger Things or something? Is it 1984?
No, you're just really old.
Well, I didn't come up with the analogy. It was you idiot.
But we've just, highlighted the problem, really, when it comes to Timo Werner, because I think he does want to leave. He's pretty much said that. It's a World Cup year. And that is having a massive bearing on this transfer window. Players wanting to get out, playing football to make sure they're in the best possible shape for the World Cup. But he's on nearly £300,000 a week, and you look at his performance.
So he's got to take a drop in wages if he wants to play and if he wants to force his way into that squad.
Absolutely, but you'll know, Trevor, that players aren't always necessarily willing to do that. So I think there might have to be some kind of compromise. But what I would say, just to pick issue with something you said there, that he scored loads of goals in the Bundesliga. Yes, he did. But Kevin Hatchard, who is the encyclopedia of German football, he told us when Werner signed, this is a guy who also misses a lot of opportunities. So
most top players who score a lot of goals do miss a lot of chances. I think you look at the stats of a lot of players that are in them top goal scoring roles, they miss a lot of chances as well. I think that's just part of the course.
Of course it is, because it's risk and reward, isn't it? Sometimes you're getting yourself into those positions, which is great, and sometimes it comes off and doesn't. These things happen at rapid speed. It's instinctive on occasions, and those instincts can let you down. But I think he might have translated the missing lots of chances bit into English football, but he hasn't translated the goal scoring.
Full of running, though. He brings something else to that Chelsea
side. He does.
And
listen, he was a big part of them winning the Champions League by stretching out towards the left-hand side, leaving the gap for Mount playing the ball into Havertz, and it's 1-0, and they win the Champions League.
And that wasn't new, because he'd done it for the other games against Manchester City as well.
It was a tactic that they sort of lent on, but they probably do want more from their forwards than just that, which is one of the reasons why it looks as if it may be coming towards an end. I wouldn't write him off yet, by the way. He's a brilliant character, and if you've ever met him, he is pretty honest with you, and I've spoken to him about the number of chances that he's missed, and he says, I've got to do better, because, and he's a very happy, sunny guy. He's got a great demeanour about him, and he says, but Chelsea didn't buy me to be a great assist maker or a great runner off the ball. They buy me to score goals, and I've got to do more of that.
I'm not doing it.
That's quite an honest reflection.
It is.
And I would say, I think you've got to have respect for him as a result of that.
Yeah, and listen, I don't think he'll be moving anywhere if Chelsea don't get another number 9 in.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.